Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor, and I'm back here to talk about the NBA after 1 week. We are calling this the Week 1 Overreaction Show for the third year in a row. No funny title. We're back with a comfortable guest at this point. I think we're getting close to the decade mark on that. Not decade mark, literally, but 10 episode mark with Grayson. Man, how are you?
It's always good to be back. 1 week NBA in, it's been a lot crazier than I think anybody expected. So this is a perfect episode to open up the season with, I think.
It's been about as goofy as I think some of these overreactions are going to be. If you're new here listening or watching on YouTube, thank you. Just know, take these with a grain of salt and then do yourself a favor and go and watch these again in 12 months because I genuinely think that's where you learn from these. Me, you, and the listeners do. Last year, Josh and I went 5 for 6. I would think him and I came to the conclusion we were like, wow, 5 of the 6 of them actually came true. So I tried my best to be a little more out there. Not necessarily like, okay, this is some hot take, Stephen A. Smith type deal. But I do want these to kind of be consumable. I want people to understand that, like, this is genuinely what I believe through three-ish games of every team. We're recording this Monday, October 24th, so obviously prior to the games kicking off tonight. But all right, in regular fashion, I'd like to hear what you have first, and I also will just very quickly preface if you say something that I even remotely think is close to the one of the four I have, we'll kind of collaborate on it, figure out what we are with it, and just go from there. I like this more than anything because I just get to hear what other people think about in a rash formality. So, go right ahead. What is your first or biggest, however you want to preface it, overreaction of the first 3 days of the NBA season?
All right. This team isn't one of the huge surprises collectively yet, but I think we're going to know exactly why. John Wall is going to be the X factor that the Clippers need, and not a lot of people expected him to be as so far. The team is 2-1. You'll take that with Kawhi coming off the bench. I don't know if I love that idea personally, but you can only lose a title in October, so I don't necessarily hate it. They clearly have kind of punted on the idea of one seed or bust. We've seen LeBron and Cleveland go through the East as a 4 seed before. So I mean, this is not necessarily a new thing, maybe the method, but yeah, I think John Wall, he's playing 25 minutes, putting up 12 to 15 shots, doing it pretty efficiently. And I think Kawhi will fill some of that as he ramps back up. But I do think John Wall off the bench for the Clippers is going to be a key presence that's going to elevate them to the contender in the West we expect.
Unfortunately for Clippers fans, I didn't have them on my radar for this, but although I am impressed, some weird games here and there, obviously, situationally, but they were able to, like they lost to the Suns, obviously, with Devin Booker putting up 35, whatever, right? Stuff like that can happen, but I think they've done what they needed to do to be competitive and be comfortable where they are now. Like we've talked all offseason, depth, depth, depth. Well, they've only really played 8, 9 deep, and that's okay. That's where we are. There's other teams playing 10, 11, 12, even 13 deep. I think the Thunder played 15 last night, did they not?
It was a lot, yeah.
It was a lot. So then some teams want to do that, great. But the Clippers don't need to be that team, like you said, in October, right? You can lose a title in October, you can't win one. So at 2-1, can't really lose a title at 2-1 this far away. So yeah, no, I was really high on John Wall, I think, but I think he's outplaying even the expectation that I had. I think the
Same, yeah.
the buy-in's there. I think he's bought into realizing that this team can win a championship, and that's no disrespect to anything the Wizards have ever done, but that team was never going to win a championship. The
No.
Wizards. So he's there. Obviously, he's very open and vocal about some of the more serious stuff that's happened in the last 2 years with him, and I think that's really helped. That is not where I expected you to go. I thought this was going to be way harsher. Maybe you started with like the light one. Maybe you're warming it up, but I did not think the Clippers and John Wall were going to be on the bench. This has been such a fun 3 days. I say 3 days, 3 games, and I just like the fact that the Clippers weren't even in a stratosphere for me, and they were 2-1, and they look awesome, and they for some reason they did the 4 hour flip at the Staples Center. Like the Lakers
Right,
played at
yeah.
5 and they played at 9. Like again, that's just whatever. This has been a goofy year already, and I'm proud of you for that one. That was really, really like very, very like suit and tie. Now we're getting to like happy hour. We're about to start, taking the tie off. Then next thing you know, we're at the bar. It's 8 p.m. and then the drinks start coming out. So that's good. Anything else on the Clippers, John Wall? Because we're already on the Clippers. I think it's not just John Wall. I think there's a lot there. You mentioned the Kawhi bench thing. Anything else about that one that I'm maybe missing? I don't know.
Yeah, I think again, this is a team that there's a lot of buzz about preseason, and then as the insanity has ensued through a week, we kind of got lost in the chaos and how great they've looked. And I think that's just one that, like Kawhi, I would ease into this with. And just put it on the record. I think that the John Wall experiment is off to a great start and continue that way.
Will he be eventually the starter, do you think? Or should he, I guess
I'd,
would be the better question.
I think should, yes, but I think if they're clicking with him in that bench role, I think he stays there. I mean, the first guy that comes to mind is like a Jordan Clarkson. You're like, wow, he could start so many places. But he kind of fits where he was in those Utah teams of the past. So I think that should, yeah, I think we could definitely get to that point if this play keeps up. But will he? I hesitate to go there through 3 games.
I don't think Reggie Jackson's been that bad. I agree. I don't think
No, I don't think
it's
so either.
I don't think it's worth changing what you have going when I think I'm starting to come around on the Ty Lue bandwagon because I just for a while was like, well, situationally he had some ups and downs and yada yada yada, and it's just without really any track record, he's kind of become a top 5 coach in the NBA, and it's kind of wild to think that out loud, but that's where he's ended up, and I think I've started to come around on that. So the Clippers in five. I did not think in 5 minutes we'd be talking about the Clippers. Now I'm already thrown off, so I don't even know which one of mine is the least spicy. Now that's really bad. Do I go with the theme of teams being good later on in the year? I
My
don't know.
next one's a bad one. So if you want to switch there first, then go ahead.
No, I'm trying to be. I really think all of mine are like way more uh, out there than they should have been, but that's okay. I'll just do this. I think the Lakers and the Sixers both missed the playoffs this year. Week 1 overreaction. It's only week 1,
Wow.
but I'll also use the terminology. The shout out to the guys at the Athletic, no dunks. They call it only one day if they do it the day after the season starts, obviously, or the only 1 week. It's only 1 week, but the Lakers and Sixers can both miss the playoffs. There you go. I'll make it less spicy. They both can miss the playoffs. I don't. I brought this one up first. I think it's the one I'll spend the least amount of time talking about, only because the Lakers are 30th in offensive rating. I think that's very clear in every chart you see on Twitter from Kirk Goldsberry. All right, like Kirk, I love you, but I'm sick of it. But they're literally top 3 in every defensive category. That's just stupid. Like, why are they third in everything? Third or higher? They're first in a couple of categories.
Oh wow.
Defensive
Yeah.
rating. They're third in defensive rating. So if you use defensive rating as a really lazy summarization, that's what I do. I use it as a really lazy summarization of all these great stats. If they're third in defensive rating and 30th of offensive rating, I think we know what the problem is. It's not hard. Like the problem is that they just can't put the ball in the basket, and that's stupid. The Sixers, on the other hand, this is where I'm a little concerned. I'm actually genuinely concerned. That's not a joke.
No, I am too. That was my next one. Was the Sixers should
Perfect.
start to think about panicking because I mean it's
Using the P word three days into the season. This is
yes,
great.
12 quarters of basketball and they look bad, and
They
it's the
do.
bench primarily.
See see, I don't know though. They look bad in general, yes, but like Harden's their only bright spot right now,
Right. And
which is
I mean
the opposite of the
it's
narrative going into the year.
right. I mean Embiid had a 40-point game last night. They still lost though. I mean it was just I don't they got Indiana tonight. They had better win that game. No Turner, no Tice. I mean, I think they're favored by like a dozen points. I mean, they're at home. They've just got to get in the win
Everything's got to
column.
go right.
I don't care who they should have done this against the Spurs at home. But like I mentioned, they dropped that game. They're 0-3. And the bench in the Spurs game outscored at 40-10. That figure is 103-34 on the season through 3 games. And that's just not sustainable in any capacity. And we've seen it because they've lost all 3 games so far. So
I try to always in the first month more than week, clearly, because the week is kind of hard to gauge. I'm trying not to walk any of these back, but I sometimes you have like you can look at a team or you can look at a stat or can look at a combination of the two and you can go, okay, it's clear cut why like the Lakers. They're defensively they're still a really good team. They can't put the ball in the basket. There's just no math's going to change that. Like that's just stupid, right? The Sixers are 28th in points per game, 30th in rebounds per game, 27th in assists per game. It, they're just struggling. It's just
it's,
one of those things. You're
yeah.
like, why does everyone suck all at the same time? Well, am I going to continue to go ahead and fall back on Doc Rivers? Maybe, but I don't think he's been that bad. I really don't. I think the lineups that they put out against the Bucks, they held the Bucks to 90 points. The
Right.
Bucks held
That's,
them to
yeah.
88 points though. So
That
why
was a
does
two
that?
point game. Yeah. It was just right.
Oh my God. I love the Indiana point. It's like I'm looking at this screen. I see the roster. I've got everything I need in front of me talking about them. And then at the top of NBA.com, shout out to the new NBA.com look. It's amazing. It's like everything looks the same. And then you mentioned the Indiana game, who's 1-2. and it might as well be in red. Like I'm just looking at my screen, and it might as well just be coming out of my end. The only thing 3D coming at my screen. So it's at 7 p.m. I will be double boxing or triple or quadruple boxing that game in something. So it'll be on some screen in this house. I don't know where and how. And you would think like the average casual fan who's watching my 60-second series is going, every day there's a game I'll go. Indiana beat Detroit by 4, and I move on. That's it. Like
And that's it,
I
right?
don't, I don't give any stat who did what. Somebody could break a record, and I probably wouldn't even mention it. Most of the times it's Wizards and Pacers games. But anyway, so this will be the one tomorrow. If the Sixers lose, it might be 3 minutes in the NBA. That's a good point on Indiana, though. Good grief. I don't know. I want to sit here and play the blame game, but I hate overreactions because overreactions aren't supposed to be detailed, and we're not supposed to spend 15 minutes on each. We're supposed to spend 5 and going, there's a reason for this, but let's not sit here and muddy up the details. You mentioned the bench. Like, I just don't. I genuinely don't know what's bad. I think everything but Harden's been horrible, and I just don't understand what to think anymore.
I
So
think
that's why I
losing
brought up the
Seth
Sixers.
Curry is having a bigger impact than we thought because that's a guy that you can look to in spots to kind of spark the offense, and he's no longer there. I mean, the defense has been solid, but that was the biggest issue with losing Ben Simmons. I realize he sat for a year too, so this is not recent, but I mean
Yeah,
that's a facet you lose from the teams that did feature him. They were, you know, further in the playoffs than they were without him. So it's tough right now. I mean, this is 3 games in. They have 79 to figure it out. So,
yeah.
but as far as an overreaction goes, as far as right now in the scope of 3 games, it's just bad. It's really, really bad.
I like the point about Seth Curry though, because D'Anthony Melton is basically Seth Curry but with playing defense. So, and he's been horrible at both. He's been a terrible on-ball defender this year, and he's been a terrible three-point shooter. So, I mean, if you want to blame somebody, sure, blame Daryl Morey, I guess. Good grief. All right. Anyway, I hate talking about the Sixers team because I almost fell into the trap I fell into. I think it was last year or whatever year that they had Simmons, whatever. So I picked them to win the title sometime in the last couple of years on the show, and I almost fell back into that trap. And obviously, I would look like public enemy number one if I had picked them in their 0-3. So I'm very thankful for that, and I'm going to just accept the win and move on
Yeah, there you
because the
go.
Lakers
That's
are in that same predicament.
right.
I'm glad that we agreed on something so far because that makes me feel a lot better about making sure that one I had them. I didn't have them in order of like most. Oh my god, to least, but the way I'm glad we worded it better. Could the Lakers and Sixers both could like if there was
Yeah,
odds on FanDuel right now for both to miss the playoffs, I wouldn't not put money on that. I
that's
would.
yeah.
I would think about it very, very strongly. All right, you have another one. Since you said that you agreed on the Philly point of it, I think you have another. We both brought what, 4 to the table per se?
Yeah, I've got some
Yeah,
backups
okay.
too, so I'm,
All
I'm
right,
ready to
good.
roll.
That's good. All right, go ahead the next one.
Building off the potential P word situation in Philly, a guy that could really ratchet it up tonight, Benedict Mathurin, the start he's had, and just kind of zooming out on that, this rookie of the year race might be an all timer because we've got Paolo and Orlando going off every night. They're going to struggle, but it's more of it's he's just been that good off the bat. We've got Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, night in, night out to this point, doing well. Walker Kessler and the somehow 3-0 Utah Jazz is ripping down 8 boards a night. I mean, there are so many guys you're thinking, what if they keep this up? What if this is, we see this over the course of the entire season? That rookie of the year, I would be scared if I was a voter at how many options you could potentially have down the stretch if this keeps up from a lot of these rookies.
I would love to unpack the all timer more, but I almost want to like bookmark that for July when we have nothing to talk about after the draft's over and be like, so now that we've talked about this year's draft that's so exciting, let's talk about all the all time rookie races that were really, really cool. And this one's probably, I agree with you, this one's probably going to fall right into that category. I did make the lazy pick of Paolo Banchero going into the season. I don't think that's lazy now looking at how good this class
No,
is.
absolutely not.
But my God, he's still really awesome. He's seventh in the NBA in scoring.
Yeah,
Like,
23, 9, and 3. I mean, you'll take that from anybody. I mean, a rookie, you kidding me?
I mean, if you had told me going into the year that that was what Paolo was going to give me, I'd have been like, oh, the Magic are going to be a 4 seed after the first week, but they're 14th
Yeah,
or 13th, whatever, because the Sixers I think are 14th, but whatever. So I'll be honest, I've only watched one Pacers game this year, so I think the Benedict Mathurin point I can't hammer much on because I'm sure he's looked great. I've seen all the social media stuff. He seems awesome. I just, it's so early, and there was a lot of. I look, I'm the guy that had him at eighth in my big board, so I think right in the range where he ended up, and it should have been there. All the right things. I had
Right.
plenty of concerns. Like eighth was, this was a good class coming in, and I think eighth was very, very respectable. I think there's a couple of reasons though, and he's shown at least in the one game I did watch. I think there, I think we're. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this so the draft community doesn't tear me to shreds. I think we do over exaggerate weaknesses sometimes, and I think that was some of my issue with Mathurin with some of the, the shot creating abilities there, yada yada yada. But like, I just thought he was going to get abused defensively because I thought they were going to be a really bad team, and he was just going to be one of the guys that just got taken advantage of. And come to find out, it's nobody on that team apparently. So they're all just like every guard on that team or every wing on that team just looks awesome, and I just, as a Buddy Hield fantasy owner, I'm very thrilled for that. So I don't know. I'd love to spend more time on the rookie class, but my God, like Keegan Murray's. I think Keegan Murray's look better than Benedict Mathurin sometimes. I really do.
Yeah.
There's
I
some
mean, that's
quarters. He
yeah.
almost won him. He almost won him the Warriors game last night.
Oh, I
Like
know. They
Keegan
stormed back in that game. Yeah.
single handedly almost took over that entire third quarter and won the game for them. But the Warriors said no, we're going to put up like 60 in a quarter. So stuff happens.
Yeah. It's that game had like 160 points total at halftime, I think. And it was just one of those all-time box score moments at the half. And then the Kings stormed back, led by Keegan Murray. And I think that was the 5-point Warriors win in
Mm-hmm.
the end of it, but
Yep,
it was
125,
closer than that,
130.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to use the Warriors as a transition to my next one because I didn't want to do this, but after just spending all week and just like actually really putting the time into these, I genuinely believe this, and I'm probably going to lose Twitter followers for this. Um, Also, I feel really bad for the guy that took the under in that Kings game. The four people that did. I think this is the best Warriors team ever in the Steph Curry era. They can play the most deep of any team. And by the way, I didn't pull up any team other than the 73-9 team because if we're just talking about regular season, I think this team, playoff wise, can compete with any of the Warriors teams. Don't get me wrong, but if we're just talking about a team that can win regular season games, I'm not saying this team's going to win 73 games. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think they will use the momentum of winning more games than expected, or just being versatile as a whole, not even just like putting a number on things. And I just don't see a situation where they can't repeat. I mean, I'm not going to make that big of an overreaction, but I'm going to say that if we're talking overreaction, grand scheme of things, great, bigger scale, I actually have both rosters in front of me, and I wanted to go through both rosters, and you tell me, A to B, and I think you'll agree by the end of it. So
Yeah, go ahead.
they're 11 deep. They play 11 deep consistently, and I do have written down Ryan Rollins and Patrick Baldwin. Ryan Rollins has only played like 12 minutes total, but like he's really good. He was an NBA draft, sleep truther, and I think people are going to really like him. I think he'll end up being the guy people slap their face about, like, why did we let that guy go 44th?
Right.
It is what it is. Ryan Rollins is not changing my scope on this team. They still played 9 to 10 deep without him. So obviously the commonalities are still Steph, Draymond, Clay. Believe it or not, Kevon Looney was on the 2015 team that went 73-9. Just process that for a second. Just realize, okay,
Yeah.
Kevon
That's
Looney's he's the oldest 24-year-old you've ever met in your entire life. It's just, I mean, he's what, 30 now almost.
yeah.
So whatever. I did not know that. I think he was a rookie that year though. So 2015-16 team has the same guys, Steph, Draymond, Clay, and I didn't think I'd be including Kevon Looney in that equation. Where you start to lose me on the 73-9 team is the next best players in no particular order, and I just did what I thought was the best guys. I basically just cut out two ways, essentially, is what I did. Because though this Warriors team this year has Ty Jerome as a two-way player, and I really value Ty Jerome. I think he's an eighth man on some other teams, not on
Yeah,
this
he
one.
was solid in OKC. Absolutely.
Leandro Barbosa, Harrison Barnes, Andrew Bogut, Festus Ezeli, Andre Iguodala, I think just entering the end of his prime, Sean Livingston, I already mentioned Kevon Looney, Maurice Spates, and Anderson Varejao. We've been watching basketball the same amount of time. Like, we can have a really honest opinion because this is basically when all the Jordan heads talk about they saw Jordan play in the 90s, yada, 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 basically our dad's age. You look at it like this. We got to see that entire Warriors era run, and now we're seeing the NBA that we're going to remember the most is in our 20s, right? So
Right.
I think we have a really good scale, and we can make a really good opinion on this. Obviously, there's some question marks with this year's team in terms of some young guys. But I can't help every time I watch them, and this is where your opinion comes into play, is James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, JaMychal Green, Dante DiVincenzo, excuse me, and Jonathan Kuminga. When those guys are on the floor, no one, like, obviously they've lost a game, obviously the Nuggets, but like this team just can beat anybody and beat them handedly. The part that scares me is giving up leads. So where are
Yeah,
we?
I
Where
just
are we? 73-9 team or this year's team? Is there like, can you, do you have a sure answer, or is it like, maybe it's
I
an overreaction?
I mean, with what we've seen from Wiseman, Moody Kuminga, the young guys, I just think the ceiling's so much higher for that next set of names after the established guys. I mean, Wiggins so far has been great. I I think I would take the roster now. I really do. I think that just the potential ceiling is so much higher for that group, and they might need it as little as it was needed back in the day. But the fact that it's potentially there, and say Clay's off a given night, you've got Wiggins there, you got Poole there. There's other options instead of Steph scoring 60. It's a dangerous team, and I realized the Denver game you mentioned. I don't put a whole lot of stock in that just because that's been a blip to this point. It's not like Philly where it's a chronic. It's not chronic through 3 games, but an issue we've
I know
seen
what you
repeat
mean.
itself. And I hate it because I'm a Thunder fan. This team has tormented me the entire time I've watched basketball. But this team's dangerous, and I think absolutely repeats on the table. I think you're right. This West, we've seen inconsistent play from Dallas so far. The Nuggets, what are they going to get out of Jamal Murray over the course of a full season and then playoff run? It's on the table. Absolutely. Memphis is dangerous, but they handled Memphis last playoffs. That plays into it mentally a bit. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if they're the favorites in the West right now. I think there's too many good teams up near the top that could, any given 7 game stretch in the playoff series. But I think, yeah, as far as repeatability goes, this team has what it takes, and the roster could very well be better than the 73-9 team.
If you're taking, and you took potential into account more than I probably would have, but like, I mean, I mentioned the Ryan Rollins and Patrick Baldwin thing. Like that's completely two question marks. Where like at least Kuminga, we knew what was there a little bit. Like we were like, okay, top 5 pick, whatever, right, or top 6 pick, whatever he ended up falling into.
Yeah.
But like at least okay, fully transparent. Kuminga's been the worst player out of the guys I named that weren't Ryan Rollins and Patrick Baldwin. He's been the worst player.
Yeah,
He
that's
really
true too.
has, and that's okay because he's 19 years old or 20 now, I guess technically, right? Because he's a young guy later
Yeah.
in the 18, 19 range. But why am I sitting here humming and hawing about the fact he's better than the 11th guy on the 73-9 team? Like it,
Right.
he is. It is what it is, and I just am so like every time I find a way to be like, I don't have to watch the Warriors tonight because they're playing the Kings because I've got 4 other games I can watch, yada yada yada, whatever. Like, are they playing tonight?
I don't think they
I'll
are.
go
No.
back. I don't think they are either because they played the Kings last night. There's been a lot more back to backs in the first couple of days that I
Yeah,
would have
they are
ever
off tonight. Yeah.
imagined. So then, all right. So perfect example. If they were playing tonight, if the Monday Night Football's on, it's going to be on one of my screens. But if Monday Night Football is a 24-point game, somebody's up 24. The Warriors being up 15 is probably more entertaining. They're to a point where
Yeah.
like if they're on TV, I have to watch them. And I never thought that about the 73-9 team until about the last 20 games because I'm like, all right, cool. They're just beating the crap out of everyone. I
Right.
wasn't gonna put them on TV. They're good enough that they're gonna beat the crap out of teams, but then they're also bad enough where they're gonna give up these huge leads. They're gonna demolish the Kings in the second quarter, and the Kings are gonna find a way to make it a 5-point game. So I guess in terms of overreacting, I'm glad I didn't go with this one, last because it's not that hot of a take, but I mean, this team's unbelievable, and I agree. Like I'm with you. Like the Tormention thing, I understand. It is what it is, but like it's just you gotta respect them at that point. I mean,
Right.
it's just
Absolutely.
it's frustrating, and it's like, oh my God, Steph Curry's averaging what 32 now every
Yeah.
night, and it's
Yeah.
just stupid. So enough rambling about the Warriors. There's a couple more I'm sure we can hit on. I've got 2 more. One that I do actually genuinely believe, and the other one I'd actually like to unpack together. So go right ahead with your next one.
All right. I think the East, as it stands right now, is Boston, Milwaukee, even Sans Middleton. And I think Cleveland takes that third spot this year from likely Miami, Philly, if they can get their act together up and down that roster. But this Mitchell addition has been nothing short of incredible for this Cleveland team. They lose Garland a dozen minutes into his season opener against Toronto, and they almost win in Toronto. I think Mitchell's been over 30 points all three games at this point. They won the next two, took OT against the Wizards last night, but that's again without Garland, who I still think is probably the best player as far as it relates to the Cavs. Um, I just think if Mitchell can keep this up, Garland comes back. I think you figure the chemistry out of the next 79 games, and they are going to be a very, very, very good team.
I like this one because I want to unpack it because I do think it's an overreaction, but I don't think it's that
Oh, it's
that bad.
absolutely a reaction. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think it's that bad of one though. My
No,
question would
because
be, all jokes aside, what do you say to Hornets, Wizards, and Hawks fans who are all 2-1 tied for the third spot together with like what would you say to them being like, well, why aren't we in that predicament at 2-1?
I I would say enjoy it while you can because I think the general direction of those teams is a stark contrast to this Cleveland team.
All right, so all jokes aside, I was kidding about the Hornets and the
Yeah,
Wizards, right? But the Hawks is what I wanted to highlight. I think the Cavs and the Hawks are on the same level right now. That would be, I guess, an additional overreaction to throw at you. I think to,
I think
to
that's
kind of
fair though.
snowball.
Yeah,
They're 2-1. They're in the same predicament that Cleveland's in, where I mean, Cleveland's a 3-pointer, down the stretch, or a Precious Chua not getting blocked against the Raptors from, or getting the block from them being 3-0 and them being tied with Boston and Milwaukee. So the Cavs have been so much fun. There's been a couple of concerns from like the Mobleys of the world that I'm really surprised by, and I think that'll just come with time and age. I really do, but I think I'm just gonna end up falling in the same place. Like if they end up as the three seed and the six seed is Atlanta, Brooklyn, Miami, Toronto, Philly, I'm probably picking any of those other teams against them in a 3-6 matchup
yeah. I
because at the
can't
end
say I wouldn't either. Yeah,
because I think it's too early. I love Mitchell's addition. Like I've completely 180 on a lot of that stuff. Even though I did like it, I just didn't. I felt like it was too much. But they're showing that they're a good team, and I think this far in the season. I mean, granted, this is the same team that people have said all last year, where it was like, oh, well, pre-Allen injury, they were going to end up being the 4 seed, 3 seed, and they were. But
right.
their defense went from fourth to 25th when he was out. You
Yeah, they
lose
would have
Allen
won maybe
again.
one series. Yeah, I mean
Right.
it's
You lose Allen again, you're in that same predicament. So it's like
right.
I'm just worried about the longevity piece there. Obviously, you can only assume so much with that, but yeah, Cleveland's look good. I guess my team, if we had said like fill in the blank with that sentence, if we took your question and pulled Cleveland out, my answer would have been Atlanta. But I think they're literally the same team right now. It's just
Yeah,
like
I think they're right there. Yeah,
you have a 20% shooting night, you lose by three, or
right.
Atlanta shot 20. I think I said it in one of the TikToks. I was like, you know, Atlanta wins tonight because they didn't shoot 21% from three. Because that's what it is. Some nights they're boom and boom.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
there's just two opposites, right? And the Cleveland Cavaliers at least have been a little more consistent. I really think they've been a
Right.
lot more consistent in that regard. So I think you're probably right around Cleveland being the 3-4 seed. Obviously, Brooklyn is just the biggest question mark, and that's why I left them out of that equation as best as I could. I don't even want to touch Brooklyn with a 30,000 foot pole. I really don't, but they're in that same regard of Cleveland, Washington, Atlanta, New York. They're all in that same range right now. So,
I think that's fair too. I mean, nuclear Durant in the playoffs, we flip the whole script, forget the regular season. That's,
yeah,
we've seen it before. So,
playoff predictions don't matter at that point. It is what it
no.
is. Anything else with? I mean, honestly, anything else with Cleveland or anything in that range? Like, obviously, right now, hey, I mentioned the Charlotte, Washington, Atlanta, Brooklyn piece. They're all in that same 2-1, 1-1 spot. Is there anything else about any of those teams necessarily, not just Cleveland?
I mean, it's fun to see Beal succeeding. I realize that he's, going to be a lifer now with that contract, probably, unless some team somehow clears all that cap space out to take him on. But Um, teams like Charlotte, where it's been a doom and gloom offseason, they come out, they win 2 out of 3. They lose respectably to Zion and the Pelicans at home. I think that's encouraging. You've got guys bought in, I think. I mean, that's without LaMelo, and I think Rozier missed one or two
One of
games
them.
as
He
well.
missed game
So
two. Yeah, he
okay,
missed the
yeah.
second game.
So I mean, is Charlotte going to be in the playoffs? Probably not. But it's good to see these teams, especially Charlotte, needing a little bit of hope, something positive in the organization to give to the fan base. And you've got it. And it might only last a week or two, but I think that's big culture wise and everything else. And obviously, when LaMelo comes back, they might keep up winning, but I don't think over the course of the season we see them stay. What are they? The 3 seed in the East right now? That's not going to last. But
You're completely right. Hornets
uh,
Twitter's eating it up for sure. They're
as
eating it
they
up.
should. They've
Yeah.
been through hell and back this offseason. They deserve it, and they should enjoy it however long it lasts.
I also just have to give a small and very humble shout out to Dennis Smith Jr. because he's been what they're eating
Oh my,
up.
yeah,
I
he's so good.
mean,
Yeah.
and the quotes make it better. He's like, I've never had a team tell me. And by the way, not the team in this like last 2 years where he's been unsigned. Yada yada. He's met in his entire career. He's never had a team be like, yeah, we really want you to be the best guy you can be, and here's how we're gonna do it. That's a slap in the face to Dallas.
Yeah.
That's a slap in the face to New
Portland.
York, Portland. Like
I was
that's
so
tough.
hopeful in Portland that Dame would kind of take him under his wing and develop him into a guy that would at least, at the very worst, stick in the league. It just didn't happen. But maybe Charlotte's that place. So good for him.
They did that with Isaiah Thomas too. So like, hey, bring in every
Yeah.
small guard you can find and just bring him, funnel him in. It's just ironic. And there's not even like who's doing this development? Is it Kelly Oubre?
I
Is it?
don't know.
It's sure not Steve Clifford because he wasn't there last
No,
year.
no.
So
I,
what is happening?
somebody
It's
on
the
the staff or
swarm.
roster is, yeah.
Yeah, it's the swarm. It's got to be like, and I said this to I don't want to spoil what pod it is coming out with on the clock, but I was on an on the clock pod recently, and I said something to the effect of like, some of these college basketball teams in North Carolina are going to be really bad this year, and I might go to more swarm games, and that's not a joke. They're closer sometimes,
They've got
and
guys down there. Yeah.
they're
I mean,
awesome. Well, I mean, they called up half those guys for the first 3 games, so I'm kind of annoyed, but it is what
right.
it is. The Bryce McGowan show moves on in Greensboro. So anyway, for the four of you that give any crap about the swarm, thank you. Whatever, man. Twitter's gonna love me for the rest of eternity. All right. I cannot believe. I don't think we've burnt any building down in 30 minutes, so that's good. Hopefully this will do it. Jason Tatum's the MVP this year. Thoughts?
I'm with you. If
Oh
this
my
Boston
god!
team,
I really hope my last one destroys this
if
Zoom.
this Boston team is the
Uh,
Boston team that we expect, I don't care who's coaching what, it doesn't matter. This team is that good. I think they could come out of the East pretty easily if they go back to back finals. And Tatum is the reason why. I know Brown's obviously one of the better tandem guys in the NBA, but I mean, how does it not? If they're the one seed, I think Milwaukee's going to be right there with them the whole way, even hopefully with Middleton coming back from injury and being healthy throughout. I think this Boston team is going to be the perfect spot to pick an MVP from. The West is going to be the Wild West, and whoever's the top two or three. I mean, John Morant, Steph Curry, you name it. There's going to be guys in that conversation from the West too. But as far as the East goes, you ask me one MVP candidate, I'd probably take Tatum, just because of how much I believe in that team and what we've seen so far, and what I think they can do the rest of the season.
he was 22-1 before the first game tipped off on Monday.
Was he? That's ridiculous.
He
That's
was. I wanted to
22
do
to
it
1.
so bad. I wanted
That's
to do it
so
so bad.
disrespectful.
I
That's
know.
ridiculous.
I know. So I'm gonna throw this at you that I thought of in the last 45 minutes right before we started this. That I feel like there's only a handful of people that I know basketball wise that would probably think of something like this, and I think you'll agree with me. And I'm just annoyed that I'm 3 hot takes in, and they're just overreactions, whatever you want to call them, and we've basically agreed on all of them. Um, Hopefully my last one, like I said, will burn the Zoom down. But before we even give any supporting stats of any kind, because there are really, I mean, obviously stats in the first honestly, 3 months don't really matter with the NBA. Like there's some there, you're like, oh, cool, this guy, that guy, whatever. Some of the detailed stats obviously have no context to them in 3 games, but can you imagine this Boston team this year if they had Will Hardy as their head coach? And that's no disrespect to Joe Mazzulla, but 3-0 Jazz with Will Hardy, who's very highly regarded by a lot of people. I'm just giving you a what if of like overreaction.
Yeah.
Would the
Oh yeah.
Celtics win the title with Will Hardy? That's probably the wildest thing I've said all year.
I
But
think
Joe Mazzulla's been good. I can't. It's not that big of one. I don't
I
know.
think the
Anyway,
playoff floor is higher with Hardy. I think they're
I think so too.
susceptible to an upset, maybe. But Missoula's been with Boston, I think, 3 years now. So there's
Hardy was there one
the
year. To be fair,
there.
yeah,
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good point too.
yeah. Hardy was there. Hardy
I
was there
mean,
1 year. So I'm overreacting slightly.
yeah,
Mazzulla
I mean
has the he has the
that's
tenure. I
fair.
mean that's the
Yeah,
point someone's going to bring up is he's
yeah, but I think
why would
as
you
far
doubt
as
against him? You know.
yeah, I think of course in coaching circles, Hardy's definitely popping up more than Missoula was, and I think Missoula is 34 years old. So I
Yeah,
mean
very young.
that plays into a part of it. He's got a decade of coaching experience under his belt already, and he's moved into the pro game, and they trust him enough to have him be the interim. I couldn't believe Brad Stevens didn't come down from the office and coach this team. I realized it was far fetched, but I kind of expected it, honestly, just to add to the chaos of that entire situation. But yeah, I mean, Missoula, through 3 games, I mean, it could be worse. They could be a 1-3 like Philly is, and everybody's like, the sky is falling. But
Yeah.
3 games, 3 wins. I think Brogdon's playing well. That was an addition that I thought was one of the better of the offseason. Obviously, guys like
Bingo.
Mitchell, bigger names, but as far as addressing team needs, I thought that was an excellent one for Boston. And so I
Best
think
free
that
agent
ship
of the
is.
tier below Mitchell. So if you're thinking
Oh,
Mitchell's a
I
tier
agree.
above
Yeah,
him, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
as a player, but as far as addressing needs, I think Brogdon fits perfectly. And I think that, and again, I don't think they're going to lose in the second round because of Joe Mazzulla. I think that they'd be a bit safer, even with a guy like Hardy. But I still believe in this Boston team with Mazzulla. I mean, we saw Ime Udoka in year one take them to the finals. So why not Mazzulla?
Yeah. Now, look, and I overreacted slightly. Talking about overreactions, I overreacted to the Udoka stuff, and I was very careful. I didn't say it a lot publicly, and I was very careful about it, and I'm glad I didn't because, boy, that chapter's not written yet. So I'm going to just leave it
No.
alone and see where it ends up. Talking about the skies falling thing with Philly, I mean, I think if they, obviously, if they're three, I think the difference between them being 3-0 but winning by 2 or 3 or 4 on every one of these games is a different story. I think people still think the sky's falling. They've dominated every game they played. It is what it is. That's just where we
Right.
are. And
Yeah.
that's where the stats back that up. Tatum's the league leader in points per game right now with 34.7. Number one in total points also with 104. Second in fast break points, so they're playing really quick. 7.7 Tatum fast break points a game. He's first in mid range field goal percentage. He's shooting 75% from the mid range.
Wow.
That was the number I
That's
wanted to. Yeah,
wow.
I wanted to kind of ease that one in. I'm like, hey, by the way, not DeMar DeRozan, but this guy
Right.
named
I was about to
Jason
say,
Tatum
yeah.
who shot 29% from mid range in the finals last year. Who, by the way, I'm gonna say it was just gassed. People need to get over that.
That's yeah.
Straight up, like he had a bad year or a bad not year. Jeez, he had a bad playoffs and bad like series, but there was factors there.
Right.
He's number one, and this is where some of these stats don't really do matter in the first honestly 3 games to 3 months. He is number one in win shares, but it's with zero point 0.7. Fourth in PER with 34%, which does actually matter no matter how many games you play. And then 14th in usage, which why I bring up usage every time on this show, whether it be prior to this or after this. If I bring up PER, you have to give me what the usage percentage of that player is because those
Oh,
numbers
I
go hand
agree.
in
Yeah.
hand. If he's not even top 10 in usage in the NBA, and yet he's fourth in player efficiency rating. He's an efficient
Yeah.
guy that's
That
not
matters.
used
Yeah.
to. Yeah. Now Luca obviously is kind of the anomaly. He's top five in both.
Right.
Whatever,
Yeah.
right? Stuff happens, but the Dallas Mavericks also got have gotten blown up by 30, and they've blown up other people by 30. So you can take that into consideration. But the Celtics team is good, and Tatum's the reason for it. So right now Tatum is the
Yeah.
MVP. Let's go rapid fire the rest, or not rapid fire, but let's just go through the rest of yours. I have one that I'd like to unpack together because I do think it might take a little bit, so, and I want to just kind of ease into
That's
it because
fine. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm done with ones that I do genuinely believe. The last one I wanted to I wanted to discuss it to see where I ended up on it. So let's go with the rest of yours.
I am firmly on the Pelicans bandwagon out west, and I
I'm
think
with you.
that the chaos we may see at the top, I think they could be a top 4 seed. I really, really do. Now, obviously, Brandon Ingram and Zion, they're both nicked up a bit. We're gonna have to them line up, obviously, but Brandon Ingram through 2 games looked incredible. Zion healthy, having fun, smiling. They've got a solid bench. Alvarado, we all know who he does defensively, effort wise, never an issue. Larry Nance, Devontae Graham, some names on the bench as well. They're barely even using Dyson Daniels at this point. So that unit could get even better. I really, really think this is one of those years where we're like, okay, these are the top 4 teams in the West, da da da, and then 2 teams come out of nowhere, and that's your top 4. Is 2 of the teams we expect, and then 2. And the Pelicans not out of nowhere. We know what this team could do with healthy Zion and Brandon Ingram playing at this level, but I'm just all in. I've seen 3 games. I mean, obviously, losing in OT to Utah last night isn't great. I don't know what in the hell's going on in Utah, but I wouldn't change a thing. Eat the same pregame meal, wear the same jersey, same shoes. I don't care what it is. That's just lightning in a bottle to this point. So, and of course, Zion left that game last night after a scary fall, which thankfully I think he'll be okay. Fell on a hip, and
Day
it
to
was more of
day.
a precaution. That yeah,
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram concussion-like symptoms missed the entirety of last night. So, um, you know, minor things. They might drop 1 or 2 more if one or both of those guys are out. But I think at full strength, this Pelicans team is a force to be reckoned with in the West.
I also want to like so to be clear, I will look back and if they are in that position, I will feel bad about my see it to believe it comment that I made. But at the same time, it's warranted when you have two guys that one of them had to carry a team last year to a what 8 seed and maybe beat the Suns.
Yeah.
But Brandon Ingram really showed what he did. Josh made the comment a few months ago about like where the heck has Brandon Ingram been? Like all offseason, we didn't hear a single thing about him, and then all of a sudden, September 15th or so, a picture of him with like 40 extra inches of hair and tattoo, no additional tattoos, a beard, like just all the things that you would think of a guy who literally just, how Kanye, like when he did that concert, like when he was making that album, he's like, I'm just gonna sleep in Mercedes Benz till I'm done. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
I think Brandon Ingram brought a sleeping bag to the gym and just was like, I'm not leaving till Pelicans first game, and I think it's exactly what he did. That's all
It
jokes aside,
showed. It
it
absolutely
did.
showed. I believe it today. I would.
I 100% agree, and I honestly, I just it's the Zion thing's interesting because I think we're going to start. We're very, very close, and I know this is an overreaction. We're way too early, but we're about 2 weeks away from if they're 7-2 and they're third or second in the West through 10 games, 7-3, whatever, or 8-2. I'm just not ready for the first take segments about Zion being an MVP candidate, favorite, all like I'm just not ready for it. It's happening. It's
Oh, they're
100% going to
coming.
happen.
Yeah, they're coming.
I'm just that's where we are. Um, the Pelicans thing, though, before the season, you would have said, and I think a lot of people said this, or like had them in this range where one of these two teams makes a jump, you had to put $1 million on it. The Timberwolves or the Pelicans. Which one did you? If I don't remember you saying it, or which one would you have said?
I'm a bigger believer in Zion than I am Gobert being added to the Timberwolves. So
That's a
I
great way to
think,
put
yeah,
that. I think
I would
Pelicans.
say Pelicans. And
So
that's Southeast bias, ACC bias, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I would say, given those two teams, you're asking who's going to take the leap. I would have to go New Orleans.
if I'm solely going out, like if I'm just being honest and solely going off my rankings, and I'm very quickly pulling them up because didn't have them up. I don't remember. I had them both in the same like not in the top six range,
Yeah,
and I
you
think
did.
that's fine. I think that's fine. I wanted to make
Right.
sure, so
Oh
I'm not
yeah.
talking. I'm not talking out of nothing. I wanted to make sure that this came with context, but it's ultimately to stall just to say that like I'm with you. Like I think even in 2 games, if we're talking overreaction, if we're trying to focus and make sure all of these things are centered around being overreaction, I think this is the first one where like I'm more sure about this one than I am the Cavs. I think this is the first one where like there is some uncertainty to it, and I do think it's an overreaction, but I don't think it's unwarranted. I think we've seen why it's not unwarranted. I think they can win games even with Brandon Ingram, but then we're right back in the same position that we were last year if Sion's not there. So for that to happen, of course, Sion's got to be there, and I pulled it up. I had the Timberwolves at 8 and the Pelicans at 9. So both of them, I was just like, screw it, they're my see it to believe it team, and I just went with it. So no, I'm with you. Like I think this is a really, really good predicament for them to be in. Finish off the rest of your list because I don't have any other backups other than the one we're going to unpack together.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the last big ones I had is during the Cavs Warriors back to back years, we had 6 straight finals with top 2 seeds involved. 4 or 5 since have had a 3, 4, or 5 seed. Last two teams win a title, both been 3 seeds. I think it's a lock to happen again. I think there's too many good teams at the top of especially the West. We saw the Warriors do it last year as a 3 seed, come out of the West, win the title. I think we're towards the middle of this era, kind of, because before with the concentration of talent where it was, it started with the OKC Miami finals, but it was just like, okay, top 2 seeds, we're going to see 2 of them in the finals, and that's it. And it was half a decade of that. And I think now that we've reached so much, I don't know, parity is the right word, but there's enough talent spread around even in small markets, like teams like New Orleans, the jump they've had in a couple of years. They can string it together. They can be healthy. We mentioned the Cavs earlier. That's another team that you could see maybe pulling a stunner against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals potentially. And it's just harder than ever to look at these. And we're way, way away from this, but looking at these playoff brackets, then you can't just pencil in 1 and 2 anymore. And it's been like that. Like I said, for the past 5 years, we've seen a team outside the top 2 crash the party. And I realized, what was it, 2 years ago? Utah and Philly both 1 seeds and both lost in the second round. I mean, I think it's great for the NBA, honestly, and I think that it's something we're going to see this year, and then more of a trend moving forward.
I think it's also a testament to like some of these teams like the Grizzlies who are like the smaller markets who have really
Right.
done their time of being bad and really built up as franchises and been able to prove that when you get a guy and you build around him and do the right things that you can be a 3 seed, 2 seed, 4 seed, anything but one basically and make the finals or win or make the second round, make third round. All of those are achievements. I don't like. I think the finals point of it. I'm with you. I mean, my only pushback would be like if the Bucks are the 1 seed and the Warriors are the 3 seed, then is that still the same thing? I mean, I guess technically the Bucks are. Okay, I guess honestly, I answered my own question. That's 50% of the finals being less than a 1 seed, so 1 or 2
Right.
seeds. So then, yeah, I guess that's fair. But if Boston's the 1 seed again, same thing. It's just, I think it's just that imbalance of the West and the East. I think we are in that same predicament. No overreaction here, but I think the East is exactly what we thought it was going to be, and I think the West is exactly what we thought it was going to be, at least
Yeah.
through a week. Like I think that
Right.
is
To this
definitely going
point.
to
Yeah,
change.
absolutely.
I also think this is definitely one that would take way longer, but like just knowing that like we've reached, I mentioned the era point about how we had the right to make the we had the not the right, I guess the word I'm looking for is like we had the validity to be able to make the right opinion about the Warriors dynasty team versus, or the 73 team versus this one. I think we're also in the same predicament where you mentioned the OKC finals like 2012. That was kind of like the peak of that era and like that big, or I guess the beginning of that peak, seeing that peak go up and seeing where that like these teams are top heavy, whatever. I think the talent shift and the imbalance in talent is just so much less. Where like every team's just like got so many good players, and maybe that's just the comes with the wisdom of watching basketball. I have no idea. I'd love somebody to do some insane book that's 400 pages about that, but I do think the league talent, all in all, did not rant. I think the league talent is I don't think it's top heavy anymore. I think it's so balanced. I think it's like a video game. Every couple of years, video game will get better, change, worse, whatever, and then eventually a really good balance comes out. And I think this is that kind of imbalance fixing itself. So I think I agree with you in that regard. Any more before a rapid fire then before we do the last one?
Uh, you're gonna hate this one, but I think the Lakers trade Russ and AD this season. Just, I think they just blow it up. I
Okay.
really do. I think that, and they'll get Dennis back. They'll get Thomas Bryant back. They'll get some guys who are expected to contribute, and they've been absent. But this is was always going to be a fall off a cliff as soon as LeBron left, whether it was to play with his son or what for whatever other reason. And this Lakers team is going to be so, I think, asset bare that they've got to decide we're either going all in and we're just going to pray that LeBron keeps this early start up and we get the contributors back and they learn how to shoot at some point. But otherwise, you have to trade every asset fetching guy you can. And I think AD is always at the top of that list. And then Westbrook, it's a whole different story. I just don't think that experiment's ever going to work. And I hate it for us and I hate it for the Lakers because, on its face, how much fun would that be? It's almost that's a poor man's Showtime Lakers right there. You got LeBron, AD, Russ, big three. If they're all clicking, it just has not happened yet. We saw it last year. AD and LeBron hurt a good bit. Russ played almost every game, and I don't think he looked comfortable in more than maybe five of them. So I think we're going to see some shocking things from the Lakers this year as far as transactions go. They need trades. Everyone knows it. They know it. They said they're going to try and hold off for another month or so towards Thanksgiving, but I don't know how much longer you can wait, honestly.
Yeah, one really important factor there that I think you're correct on the month out thing. It was said by Windhorse and all the people that I trust in that conversation. And then literally this morning, as we were prepping for this, apparently all of the phone lines have been opened back up for every scenario for the Lakers trades. And it's like, okay, I don't. Both of you shut up. I don't care who's right, who's wrong. Um, this, yeah, and I'm not gonna play the blame game because it's been 3 games, and that's just the fandom in me, and I'm trying not to be a fan as much as I'm trying to be constructive. But I'll make a point that I made that I had to not put publicly before. It is now. I'm going to say it again. Basically, the last time I said this, it didn't get the chance to see the light of day. But if Russ gets moved, it's his 5th team. He'll be the first player in NBA history to play 5 different teams on a 5-year contract. So, or on a 5-year max extension. So
Right.
short sample size there. But I'm not playing the blame game. I'm not saying it's his fault. Obviously, that shot down the stretch with the Portland game was terrible. But he actually looked really good the first 2 games, and I don't think people understand that. And I just think that's where we've reached with the Twitter sphere. So I'm with you on all of that. I just
Yeah.
they got to do
And
something. I'm glad you remembered. Like unlike most people in my life, I'm glad you remembered that they can't trade LeBron until the offseason.
right. And you
So
mentioned this
thanks for
morning. So I
remembering
was,
that.
yeah.
Thank you for
Uh,
not being naive.
yeah. As far as Russ goes, I mean, I didn't see a single clip of his defense. I've seen that Portland shot 80,000 times. So that's just kind of the cesspool that Twitter can be. Once
Hmm.
that narrative gets written, that's how it's going to be portrayed. And, obviously, what was it, 14 seconds in the shot clock? You can't do that.
Yeah.
LeBron threw his hands up, should have, honestly. I think they're both have enough respect for each other to react honestly. And that is
Yep.
pretty much what we all did. So, yeah, I hate it for him. I think he moves. I just don't think he's the only star there that does end up getting traded.
Yep. Not an overreaction. This is the least fun I've had watching the first three games of the Lakers season in about, how old am I? 20, 20. I think I had more fun with some of those D'Angelo Russell teams. I really did. All right. Any more, but really quick? Obviously, we're getting up to the 50-minute mark. Any more that you have that can be digested?
Yeah, I'm gonna be as obnoxious as ever as far as getting SGA in an All-Star game. I'm sick and tired of it. I don't care if
I
we're
love it.
3-35 when they vote for this. Put him in the damn All-Star game, please. One time.
I'm with
I'll
you.
never ask again. One time.
I'll never
Just
ask again.
one time. I'm so tired of this.
Well, you have that on record now, so never ask
Yeah.
again.
I realized he was hurt last year. They weren't gonna do it anyways. That's not an excuse, but he's just too good. And I realized, the team around him is all 19 years old and they need time. And we don't have Chet all year. Otherwise, I think we'd be a play-in team, honestly,
Yeah, I'm with you.
contender. But yeah, he deserves the respect that he's gotten from smaller circles, certainly not nationally. And we just lost our only national TV game this year, so
Wow, really?
he's not going to
I
get the
didn't know that.
chance. We got
Wow.
a game against either Utah or Minnesota, somebody on TNT first weekend of November, something like that. And that's with Chet gone, that kind of loses some of that shine. So I think
Fascinating.
as it stands now, we will not be on ESPN or TNT all year, which that's a lot more fair than you know.
It got flexed. It is what it is.
Right, it
You know.
happens, and I can't really argue that. But I mean, yeah, Shea, I realize not the national spotlight because of where he plays and what that team's been doing since that magical Chris Paul season, but he deserves it. And if you have league pass, I encourage you to flip over, and if we're losing by 15, and watch him because he's so good, and I think underappreciated for sure.
I'll end with the league pass hammer it down point. This is the cheapest. Two things. This is the cheapest league pass has ever been in the history of league pass, and it's the cheapest premium sports package in American sports. Please buy League Pass, anyone and everyone. The $12.99 a month gets you commercials on playbacks and commercials live during like timeouts that you would watch on TV anyway. If you can suck up $7, sure, $19.99 a month. You literally don't watch a single commercial, and it's amazing. It's like you're in the arena for some of these games. They do the cams and whatever. You care about that stuff? Who cares? I don't. I just switch it to the next game and come back. But I don't have to pay. I pay $7 to be able to basically skip commercials to the next game. So genuinely, like, buy it. If not, whatever. Like it is what it is. Like your blackouts with Bally Sports are gonna suck. So I'm with you. Hard to be an injury replacement if he's injured though with the hip contusion. So I'm there. I get it. All right. Are you? I don't. This was. I wouldn't do this for anyone else honestly because of just the scenario behind this one. But we're gonna end with this one. We're gonna spend the last 10 minutes, and I'm gonna. It's 52:08 on my clock. I'm just gonna ignore that for now. But we're gonna try to keep this one to 10 minutes, even though I am okay with it going longer and basically making it its own show. But in the last 20 years, Danny Ainge has been the best GM in the NBA. That is my overreaction right now. Oh my God, please don't agree with me. This is what I was
I
afraid
mean,
of.
I'm going to say Presti. I'm not going to not say Presti, but
Well, that's why I did it. But like,
yeah,
let's go through this though, because how many can we at least narrow it down? Can we either make it a Mount Rushmore or can we either make it a starting five? Like what? Let's just do this together.
he's
Let's
on both of those. Absolutely,
okay. So then
he's
we'll
in
do
that
starting
group.
five.
Yeah,
We'll do starting five. Ainge, Presti. Would you put Hinkie in there? That's a
I
genuine
mean,
question. Genuine question.
I think I'm higher on him and look kinder on him than most historians do, and I'm not considering myself a historian, but I think it was a process. I think you could not lose 80 games for 5 years like they did. I think the draft picks they did take were largely misses, which is what really killed them.
Yeah, they
But
killed
I
him
think
too, for
right, no,
sure.
he Sam Hinkie literally died for Embiid missing the first 2 years of his career.
Yeah,
So I think if his draft hit rate had been higher, then I think you know that goes a lot differently. I know now they're contending, obviously, but that's taken a lot more than what he ended up building for them. Just because, again, I mean, your Okafors of the world. I'm forgetting another Duke big they had as well that just did not pan out in the slightest.
Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel. That's yep.
Yeah.
No, that's Kentucky.
Uh,
Wait, that's Kentucky. No, you're right. That's Kentucky.
there's a bigger guy center for Duke like 5, 6 years ago. Not 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago.
Jaleel? No, you said Jaleel.
Yeah, it's Okafor, and there was another one.
Why you keep
He's
why you keep on your point? I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna bother me.
he's bounced around the league a couple. He was like with Chicago randomly, I think. I can't
All right,
remember his name, but
I'll look it up.
yeah, I mean, and you put that next to a guy in Presti that got Harden, Ibaka, Durant, Westbrook within like 4 or 5 years. Steven Adams, another one. I mean, obviously Giannis would have been nice there, but that is what it is.
Harry Giles. Harry Giles is who
That's
you're thinking
still
about.
not who I'm thinking
No,
of,
yeah,
but
you're
that's
right. You're
another
right.
one.
He wasn't.
Because he was the Kings, wasn't
Kings Blazer. Yeah, Kings Blazers. Yeah, draft trade. Winslow, Jabari Parker,
he?
Rodney
That's who it
Hood.
was. Jabari Parker.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
That's who it was.
I
Yeah.
was thinking center when you said big, but I guess I neglected the fact that he technically is a big because the way he played. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Parker was big. Yeah, there's a lot, man. This list is way longer than it should be. Um, good grief. Anyway, I'm gonna close that tab. So, no, I'm with you. So Hinkie, I'm gonna put Hinkie on the like. Let's put him on the 6-man role for now. Like we're literally building a team. It doesn't have
That's
to be a
perfect. I like
position.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The scenario and the reason it came up is I wanted to read you the current before we even think of guys like Hinkie. Let's go through and see if we can get 5 out of guys that are currently right now in the last 20 years. A lot
Okay.
of them have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Travis Schlenk, famous for putting the Warriors, help putting the Warriors together.
I
Current
think,
Atlanta
yeah,
Hawks. I think he's got to be in there, right?
that architect of either one of those, honestly, I think has to be in there. So yeah,
So
I like
then,
that.
so then locks for sure. Presti, Schlenk, and who was the one I started? Oh, Danny
Ainge.
Ainge, of
Yeah.
course.
That's three. Yeah.
That we're already at 3. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So it makes this decision easier. Um, I'm just going to read them. What you can laugh, we can answer it. It can move on. Don't
Yeah.
spend
Go
a
ahead.
minute on each one. Brad Stevens, no, not
No.
enough. Not enough record yet, right?
Right. Yeah.
Sean Marks,
No.
no.
Talent, yes. Results, no. Yeah.
I think those have to go hand in hand.
Right.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Mitch Kupchak. This is the one I debated for a long time. I spent like 3 hours on this. This is bad.
Earmark him, honestly. Like he's
All
in
right.
the discussion. I just
Yeah.
don't know if he cracks those last 2 spots we've got.
All right, I'm with you. Kobe Altman for the Cavs.
I mean, it is overreaction. So yeah, if this Mitchell thing keeps like it is, then absolutely.
Okay.
Healthy Jared Allen, all that good stuff.
I'm gonna let you
I-
dictate that one because guess what? We're at 4, and I still think there's 2 guys that are deserving. So I think this is where it gets really weird. The one that I'm leaving out intentionally until now, Bob Myers.
I
Does he get credit? Like, okay, see, this is where it gets weird. Okay, by the way, every single casual fan who is looking for overreactions had
Yeah,
left about 5
Google
minutes ago.
him and Google Mark Jackson real quick, and then this will be a lot easier.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, if we're gonna put the architect in, I think the guy that's kept it going deserves the credit as well. I think that when you're handed the reins to a situation like that, like Steve Kerr was, I think that you know, while they didn't build it, they've certainly taken it and run with it to heights that are up there in NBA history, honestly. So I think that the Durant thing is what it was, and I think you could do a lot worse than what they're doing right now post a situation like that. So I think he's in there too, which is crazy to have 2 from one organization, at least partially, but yeah.
So that probably will eventually change. So we technically have our starting 5, and I think there's
Right.
2 more we at least need to bring up. Whether they're quick answers or not, it's up to us. But Rob Pelinka, you knew that was coming.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the one that was next. I mean, that's
Hypothetically, I'm going in
again,
alphabetical order.
I think it's talent, yes, results, no, but then they have the title in 20, so it's tough.
Depends on what you value.
Yeah, and I mean, I love Westbrook, but that certainly hasn't worked. I think the AD trade was necessary. I know they gave up a ton for that, but that got you a title, and that's why you do it. So I think that if they didn't win a title, then I think he's been out of a job. But that's tough. That really is tough. I mean,
I'm with
the
you.
Lakers, the expectations are obviously higher. Things like that you got to take into account. I think before last season, yeah, but then what we saw unfold last year for them, I struggle to keep him on that same level. Although I think he deserves to absolutely be in the discussion.
So I'll make your starting five easier because I'm about to ruin your NBA timeline for general managers in 20 years. The starting five is about to get. We're have to actually create a pool here. This will actually be really difficult. Um, we need to come up with locks from the current ones because that has to absolutely matter. So
Yeah.
Presti's a lock. I'm with you
Yeah.
there. Presti's a lock. Because and by the way, I'm cutting out because there's so many guys from the early 2000s that count towards it. That's why I wanted to get through this.
Hmm.
I'm cutting out like Elton Brand, James Jones. Results,
Oh,
no
there's so
championship.
many. Yeah,
Talent, no
exactly.
championship. Like I'm with you. Though you have to
Right.
come up with who's the best guy from that tier. So do you give it to Schlenk or do you give it to Myers? That's you have to pick one of those. That's the
I
issue.
would give Schlenk, honestly.
Okay,
I really
all right.
would.
So let's leave this with at least two current. So I would go with Presti and I would go with Danny Ainge, and then maybe
Yeah.
one more. Or do you want to just table the rest of them for now?
We'll table the rest for now.
All
We'll
right.
see where
Well,
we circle back to.
Schlenk is the one that right now would be the third. I think is where
Yes.
we've ended
Yeah.
up. All right. So those three. Now I'm about to ruin your NBA your NBA timeline is what I'll call it. I'm going to use the Executive of the Year award because that falls under GM and basketball operations, and all of those fall in the same. All these guys count. Let's be real. Like
Yeah.
general manager
Yeah.
is technically not just
No,
technically
you're
it's
right.
basketball
Yeah.
operations. Like some teams don't do a GM, they do
Right.
basketball whatever
Structurally different. Yeah.
BOP or whatever they call it. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to read the winners from 2000 on just to give you an idea why this is hard. Joe Dumars, Jerry West, Brian Colangelo, Elgin Baylor, Danny Ainge. I'll just throw that in there. John Hammond, I believe, is currently a GM too. Did I skip over him? I believe I did. Let me go
I don't
back
think
real
you
quick.
mentioned him yet. Yeah.
John Hammond for the Magic is currently the Magic one, but he won in 2009-10 with the Bucks. Meh. Pat
Yeah.
Riley.
Oh wow. I can't believe we hadn't brought him up yet. Yeah.
There's a reason I went current and moved on. I wanted to just get through this.
Yeah.
Larry Bird. I'm going to leave out one and come back to him. R.C. Buford, multiple times for the Spurs. Essentially, we're just going to end up making this an all-time 2000s
Right.
team and just
Yeah.
call it a day. Daryl Morey and James Jones are the only notable ones that I think are worth mentioning over the last couple of years that I think deserve it. So I'm leaving out the last one, Masai Ujiri.
I knew it. Yeah.
Yep, there he is. There he is. I knew it was going to happen. All right, so is it a starting 10 at this point? Is that like there's that many worthy GMs? There has to be, right? But we have
Yeah.
to do a starting five. I think that's the
Right.
debatable thing. If we're doing hot takes, what's the starting five? Presti, he deserves
Yeah.
it. He deserves it.
It's
I'm with
just
you.
yeah. Yeah.
I also don't want to fight you on it. I'm good with it. I'm just going to leave it be because I think he deserves it.
Presti. Yeah. Presti, Ainge, Schlenk, like we said. I mean, if you want to have the guy behind LeBron in Miami and the Spurs dynasty in there, I don't know how you don't. I mean, that's
R.C. Buford, is that what you're talking about? I mean,
yeah,
we're
yeah, no,
talking.
yeah. Buford and
Okay.
Pat Riley. Yeah.
We're talking about Buford's a two-time winner. Riley, I think, technically has an asterisk because he was technically the GM. Okay, so then yeah, that counts.
Right.
So then Riley, you have to just.
I mean, since 2000, yeah. I mean,
technically it's talent and technically it is titles. I mean, he put them together. Good
yeah. I mean,
grief.
two different approaches for sure, but they both had what 3 or 4 titles in that decade. I mean, it's
I think Schlenk's gone. I think that's where we've ended up. I hate to say, isn't that wild to think that the
yeah.
Warriors might be the Warriors guy,
In
the guy
Atlanta
that
now,
built.
yeah.
I mean, maybe, but all right. So we're Ainge for sure, Presti for sure, R.C. Buford, Pat Riley. Do you give it to Schlenk or do you give it to Masai Ujiri? That's where I've ended up. That's the fifth
I
guy.
think you'd give to Schlenk. I think
Okay.
you do. It's tough because Masai Ujiri. I mean, we saw how it unfolded. He took a huge risk bringing Kawhi in, and they got him a title. And I know he wasn't let on the court after that, but I mean, it that was one of the better additions in the last decade as far as getting your team over that hump. But I think Cleveland's a little bit too early to have Mitchell be compared to, as far as similar transactions. But that Toronto team was good enough if they added something and then they went out and got Kawhi Leonard, who at the time was one of the best players in the NBA. So I think he deserves a ton of credit for that. But when you stack them up over the last, what are we doing, 15, 20 years here? I mean, it's tough because, I mean, ultimately they did win one title. And I think that, Presti, obviously, they've only got one finals, but just the draft success. And I know recently it hasn't been the same results, but I mean, Giddy, Chet, with these picks near the top of the draft board again, we're seeing the similar results that we did back when we got the original core together. So I think he's got to be in there too.
I'm with you. I'm willing to give it to Schlenk because of the tenure of a dynasty at that point, and the fact
Right.
that he
Yeah.
he helped give Myers what he could before he left, and it was a smooth transition, and yada yada yada. I think, lastly, and we can end up on this, but like the Masai Ujiri thing's interesting because all of that credit we give him in the last 5 minutes is given to his Toronto stuff, but you realize he won it in 2012 for the Denver Nuggets. so,
No, I didn't. Wow. So
so
that's even.
he's
I mean, it's
his
even
tenure's
tougher. Yeah.
difficult. Yeah, his
Right.
tenure's
Yeah.
difficult. Larry Bird, we're giving us a slight to in this technically. Obviously, he'd be one of the first guys off the bench. Daryl Morey's being left out of this conversation. Bob
Right.
Myers multiple times won it in 2014, 2016. Because definitely Schlenk was there and Schlenk never won the award. But if we're giving like Schlenk Myers, I think you just kind of have to give it to both. Is where I've ended up. That's what I was ending
Yeah.
with.
We
Was
could. Yeah.
we debated that, but like if you look at the track record, Bob Myers was hired in 2012. Schlenk was part of that, and they basically worked together.
Right.
So what do? You have to give it to both of them because Myers won the award in 14 and 16,
And he should have both
and he
times.
should.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's yeah.
That might as
Absolutely.
well say Bob Myers slash Travis Schlenk is I guess where I ended up with
Yeah.
it.
I
So
mean, both contributors to what the Warriors have been since they drafted Steph essentially. So yeah, absolutely.
all right. So to answer the question, or to I guess react to the overreaction now that we have it, is Danny Ainge the best GM in the last 20 years?
I there were so many times where he could have pushed the chips in like Ujiri and potentially gotten Boston to where they were at. And obviously, what a great first week for Utah. But I think so because the titles were there.
Really? Oh, so we've ended up with it is. Oh, so is it an
Yeah,
overreaction? No. I'm going to
I don't
say it
think,
is an
and I'm
overreaction.
biased too.
I'm
I
going with my
think
own
he's
take. It's an
absolutely up
overreaction.
there.
It is.
Um,
He is. No, he's definitely in the starting five, which, by the way, I was just not even going to do the starting five thing. And then literally 15 minutes ago, I pivoted to it because I
yeah,
realized how many people
there's
would have
so
been
many
left
names. Yeah,
left out of that conversation where I was like, who cares about Danny Ainge's trade history in Boston? That was the article I had referred to prior to
right.
recording was,
That's the
yeah,
biggest knock on that. That's really, and if you want to knock, that's not the worst one to have by far. I mean, I think if Presti had even won one title with OKC and the architect he's been, I mean, we've got a million more chances for him to hit on draft picks, and we could certainly be right back in the playoff discussion 2 or 3 years from now. And then this conversation kind of flips on its head because if we get back to as talented as we were in the early 2010s, then I mean, look out because to do it once is incredibly difficult, especially in a market like OKC. If you do it twice, barely a decade apart, I mean, that's you've got to have him up there for sure.
all right. Well, that was a great place to end because ironically, I actually disagree with my own take, and I think you end up agreeing with it. So, overreaction, yes, no, whatever, doesn't matter. Danny Ainge is deserving. All of these guys are. If you guys out there listening and watching do care enough about GMs in the last 20 years like we do, please let us know your thoughts below if our starting five is absolutely ridiculous or if it's not. Um, Let us know your overreactions in the comments or on Twitter. Twitter's great because I get to actually reply and interact and be more, there and see it. Continue to show love on the NBA in 60 Second series. I appreciate all of it. I'm done with my generic plugs. I can do all of mine later in post production. But since the last time I've had you on and seen you, a lot of crazy things have happened, bachelor parties, etc. But all jokes aside, I think since the last time I've seen you, you had Appalachian State's starting quarterback Chase Bryce on, some insanely impressive gambling wins and loss streaks. So whatever plug you want, get it get it in here now. Next couple of minutes, whatever you need to plug, say whatever. Thanks for coming. Go ahead.
Yeah, me and my two college roommates, we were all student athletic trainers at Clemson during our time there. Uh, two national titles to our name, not really, but most hydrated team in the country, and they won a bunch of games. We were lucky to be a small part of that entire thing. But yeah, we've got a podcast that we've been doing for a couple months now, and it's the 1009. We're at the 1009 on Twitter, and you'll find all our links there as well. We covered just about everything. We focused on football. I sneak some NBA in there because I watch more than they do combined. So, but it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it. It's something we talked about doing for years. We're in a group chat every day, and we talk enough to make content anyway. So we finally took the plunge and did it. And that was honestly thanks to Josh and Trevor and their Two Pointers podcast and how successful it's been and how much fun they had with it. So I do credit you guys for helping inspire us to do that. And yeah, it's been awesome. So check us out. We're on Twitter, like I said, YouTube, the 1009, all that fun stuff. And like I said, mostly college football. They're both big Braves fans, so unfortunately not this year, but we do a bunch of baseball stuff too. And then, like I said, I do my best to get some NBA in there as well towards the tail end.
9 times out of 10, when it's brought up, it's not in the title for what it's worth. So if you,
Right?
that's my
Yeah.
way of telling everybody, if you go check it out, you got to listen. That's the whole point. Thanks again for coming on. Looking forward to the stuff the rest of the year. Obviously, for those that are here, seeing the name going, oh, cool, the guy that did Trivia Finale. Well, I'm still going to find a way to make him involved because Trivia Finale, unfortunately, as you know by now, is no longer. So we'll make it work. We'll do this again closer to some stuff like, big stuff like trade deadlines, et cetera. So we've got plenty to talk about. It's the NBA. If you ever need to get your NBA itch out of the way, since you guys are forcing you to talk about football for 95 minutes at a time, just let me know. And it's always open. It's always welcome. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you again. All the links for him will be right down below as well. 1009, personal stuff, etc. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for all the support of the last couple of weeks. Don't forget to check out all of the daily stuff going on social media, as well as shout out to the guys on the clock. I'm doing a lot of content with them. College basketball is coming very, 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 very quickly. So this has been the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor, and we will see you soon.